Donk Nation, Jackson, Janet's greetings and welcome to your Daily Dose of Donkey with Ginger. It's your boy, the Viking Donkey, bringing you some playoff talk. We'll talk about the playoff games going on, but more importantly, the last Steelers talk of the regular season, postseason mix, as we always end it after the Steelers end their season. Of course, that came at the hands of the Buffalo Bills, and anyone who really watches football kind of knew what happened on the field is what everyone kind of expected. Laskers, Gingy, what do you guys see out there in this final game? Another postseason blowout issued to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Gingy in the house. Boy, what an abrupt end to the season. You know, luck ran out, running off of fumes, donkey. Laskers.
To be honest, I didn't see anything that I didn't expect. I really didn't expect us to show up to that game. I was definitely disappointed we didn't get a win, but we shouldn't even been in that game.
And the standard is a standard. Mike Tomlin's going to get a contract extension. So, good news down the pipe because playoffs don't mean anything. 9-8 is the goal, Laskers. Art Rooney II is making that vastly clear that he does not have that cutthroat mentality of the previous Steelers owners. How do you feel about that?
Well, he gets his money because we make the playoffs every now and then. He gets his money for the playoff games. That big CBS money from the game. Even though it wasn't in Pittsburgh, he still gets his money. And that's how I'm looking at it, because I don't like the standard, but hey, Rooney, make your money. I don't give a shit anymore.
That's a slippery slope to becoming the Pittsburgh Pirates, Gingy, but at least the Steelers win more games than they lose in the regular season, which is something Pirates fans can't say. So, Gingy, was this a successful season for the Steelers? 10-8 overall, 0-1 with a playoff blowout.
That's tough to say, Donkey. And a team that's usually steadfast and consistent, there was lots of turmoil. Turmoil at starting quarterback, turmoil at offensive coordinator. And in the last game of the season, we all know 1-11 without TJ Watt. While there is fair share of blame to be passed around, Donkey, I cannot deny the facts that there were some limitations on our strengths on the sides of the football. As you always know with me, going back to splash plays, our splash play guy, the signature splash play guy, defensive player of the year candidate splash guy, wasn't there. Doesn't usually bode well for us. And we're talking about a QB transition where we're talking about competition for Mason Rudolph with Kenny Pickett, our first round shiny new toy, right? And that's turmoil. In my opinion, and a true lack of leadership on offense. Yeah, there's some coaching issues at the head top there, but I think that those things equally share blame that I explained there.
Talk about coaching issues at the head top. Did either of you see Najee Harris calling out this organization for essentially a lack of discipline in rules and standards? I mean, you got a guy like Najee coming from a program like Alabama that you uphold the ways, you do the ways. This guy has been a quiet guy. These last 6 months, he's been letting it air. To me, that really shows that something's rotten, and it's rotten at the top, Gingy. Yes. No,
yeah, I don't know about rotten. What do you mean by rotten, Donkey? Like rotten to its core, like irreversible, or what are you trying to say there?
There needs to be some big changes.
I'm saying when you're a person who lets a workplace get to a certain level, the only way to fix the problem is to clean house. But that doesn't seem like a thing that's going to happen. I hope that's not what we need, but you see these players talking out, you see these rumblings, and it's not just one guy. We've had Chuck Okorafor come out and talk about it. We shipped off guys how many numerous guys have we shipped off because they said something about it? I mean, you're talking Chase Claypool, you're talking Juju Smith-Schuster. You can keep going down name after name after name. This isn't a one-year thing. This is something we've been hearing about for 4 or 5 years, but we didn't really take it serious because it was never a guy who was a premier guy on the team that said it. It was someone who was already working their way out of the organization. Do we put more credence on it now that it's a guy who is a steadfast staple of what this team wants to be?
You might have to, Donkey, but I feel like there's mixed messages. All right, and here's what I'm seeing. Guys on the defensive side of the ball aren't guys who are saying this consistently, who are being headed out, in my opinion. I think there's a lot of guys
Cam
on
Sutton?
the offensive side on the ball.
Cam Sutton? I firmly
don't know
believe
what
the reason Cam
Sutton's
Sutton was
saying.
let go is his third year. He called out the coaching staff, the way they handle things and the way they do business. He got to play that fourth year, but then was not offered a contract the year after. Was that a coincidence? Or was that we just pushed those guys out the door? How about Isaiah Buggs? He's now starting for Detroit. We cut him in year 2 because he had to go off about the way things were handled with the coaching staff. That's what I mean. I could keep going back the past 5 years and show these players who turned into something somewhere else that were let go because of the things they said about the way things were done in Pittsburgh. So it has happened on the defensive side, Gingy.
Yeah, I guess so, Donkey.
So Laskers, there's some credence here. Is there something bad going on in there that's just not being aired out? Because we know Tomlin doesn't let those things ever leave. Is this a thing that maybe even dates back to Antonio Brown?
I would agree with that it dates back to Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, but I also don't think that those two were the correct people to air their grievances out. But I think there's something going on, and I think the players now saying something, after all the things we've heard over the last 6, 7, 8 years, it's definitely something that needs to be considered. I mean, there's definitely something wrong in the coaching staff, and there's no discipline. And shout out to Najee for calling it out.
Yeah, he didn't get benched when he called it out, unlike poor Chuck Secor. Neither here nor there. Things go, things fly, things don't go the way you've seen. All that fun talk, but let's get down into it. Let's just talk about the game a little bit. We'll talk about what do we do from here a little more. But I don't even know what to say about the game. I mean, 3 and out fumble, 3 and out. The offense does what the offense does, which is literally nothing. And I'm sorry, I told fourth, fifth game, when you get tape on a quarterback, you start to really see what he can and can't do. We've seen the limits of Mason Rudolph. I'm going to tell you right now, if next year our quarterback competition is Kenny Pickett versus Mason Rudolph, I'm not that enthusiastic because Mason's ceiling looks like a bottom, fringe starter, Gardner Minshew type. Kenny's ceiling, we don't know what it is. We certainly know what his floor is. A no turnover, no touchdown quarterback. That ain't going to do it. I want to see one of those guys like Jameis Winston brought in, a guy who's not afraid to push the ball, take shots, and try to lead an explosive offense. That's where I hope the Steelers go in their coordinator thing, because we saw that offense.
Fields.
It was dull. And we'll finish on the offense by saying this. How the hell do you run a 2-minute drill when you're down 2 possessions and throw 5-yard checkdowns every pass? I don't think Mason Rudolph gets it. I don't think Mason Rudolph can win that checkers. I think he's playing checkers at the end of the game when everyone else is playing chess, because you cannot make those decisions in that chance. And I know it's a miracle, but you still have to give yourself a chance. And Gingy just not pushing the ball down the field when you have to. That's Mike Tomlin in a T.
Yeah, that's not going to do it. We don't have our quarterback at hand yet, in case there's some real development from Kenny Pickett, and I'm not sure what we're going to do about it, Donkey.
Probably stand pat, sit on our hands, have Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, and we'll probably bring in one of the lower tier guys who's a backup. I don't know who you want to look at. Maybe we'll bring back Josh Dobbs. Who knows? Something like that level of signings, what I expect, because the standard is the standard. And let's get to the standard. Let's talk about defense.
Wait, I want to chime in here real quick.
Go.
How the hell do you end the first half with essentially 3 timeouts? Okay, yeah, we took one with two seconds left. How the fuck do we only take 1 timeout?
I haven't got to the defense.
No, we're just talking about 2-minute drills. How do we only take 1 timeout when the Bills got the ball back with 1:30 basically in the first half?
That was the defense, and let's start there on the defense. So we get a sack to force 2nd and 17 with about 45 seconds left. The Bills punter, by the way, was just injured on the blocked field goal the drive before, so they don't have a punter. It's 2nd and 17. You're down 2 scores. And instead of playing aggressive football, the Steelers once again decided to live in their fears and let the clock run out. But what's more embarrassing is Lasker, as you said, we called 1 timeout. Yeah, we sure as hell did, with 4 seconds left in the first half. What in the hell is that about? If you're not going to call the timeout, don't call the timeout. That was the absolute
The Bills
pinnacle.
weren't even going to play a play.
No, that's the absolute pinnacle of stupidity. That's the absolute pinnacle of Mike Tomlin's clock management ability. Everyone has questioned it since he's been a coach, and it reared its head surely in this game, no doubt about it. Gingy, do you want to chime in there or wait till we're done talking about the defense?
Yeah, clock management has been an issue on this team throughout the years. That's just unfortunate. I wish you got a point for everyone you brought into the half with you. That'd be helpful.
Yeah, it'd be really helpful.
Yeah, it certainly would. Also, let's not forget the Steelers get a lot of help in this game and can't even do anything with it. I mean, Pat Freiermuth fumbled the ball, clearly recovered by the Bills inbounds. Somehow that gets reviewed and still said the guy recovered it out of bounds. I don't know what smoke they were puffing over there, but for any Steelers fan who wants to complain about the refs, don't forget the biggest call in the game, that fumble, went the Steelers' way. Not once, but twice. So, I mean, it was just a crap show on defense. They give up first quarter points, no big surprise. They don't do anything. The Steelers, by the way, now the last 5 playoff games, 0 points scored in the first quarter, 66 points allowed. What does that tell you? That the opponent is game planned better. The opponent coached better. The opponent prepped better. I mean, this is 5 straight playoff games. This goes back to 2017. This is an embarrassment. What is this? The 5th straight playoff game? The Steelers with a defensive coach and Mike Tomlin have allowed 30-plus points? The pass rush is non-existent. Cam Hayward's getting run over. Our big offseason retainment of Larry Ogunjobi essentially got beds for Amar Watts, who's a guy we signed week 9 of the regular season, is displacing our huge free agent signing. I don't know what to say about this defense. Pat Pete can't cover. Minkah Fitzpatrick only cares to play if it's beneficial to him and his contract. As you've seen, both him and Pat Peterson just watch Josh Allen run into the end zone because, DeMonte Casey touched him. That means he's down, right? No one needs to give effort. No one needs to try. No one needs to do anything. I don't even know what to say, Gingy. You watch that game. You tell me one good thing that defense did.
No, it wasn't there this time. Like I said, we're looking for the splash, and there wasn't any. We lost the turnover battle, and ultimately, we were absolutely not going to win the game without at least having the turnovers in our favor, plus a little bit more.
I hear you for sure. And Laskers, a lot of people want to blame the injury to T.J. Watt. I get that, but every team's without players. Hell, Buffalo was without
Von Miller.
Von Miller, Tre'Davious White. I think they're missing one of their nose tackles. They were missing 2 linebackers. They were missing a starting safety. That team didn't make any excuses.
Gabe Davis.
I haven't even got to the offense. They were also missing their backup linebacker who went in because he got injured like 3 plays in. On offense, they're missing guys like Gabe Davis, who, if you remember the first time they played the Steelers, or last time they played them 2 years ago, or last year, had like 180 receiving yards on 3 catches. I mean, we want to make excuses and make it seem like it's okay that the Steelers lost because they can't win without TJ. But that's the problem. One guy should not determine your season. The Browns play the whole season without their starting quarterback. So do the Vikings. These teams are still competitive, but one injury just seems to kill the Steelers, Laskers, because maybe we only have one good player.
Oh, from what I've seen, he is the team. If we don't have him, we ain't playing.
The
We don't
literal
even show
MVP
up.
of the league because no one's more important to their team than TJ Watt.
We don't even show up to the game if he's not there.
To be fair, we don't show up to playoff games. And we haven't for a long time. You want me to quote your Tomlin's record since the last Super Bowl, which was 13, 14 years ago? Trust me, it's terrible. Let's not forget now, Mike Tomlin 8-10 in the playoffs. Gingy, when did the standard become losing playoff games? And not even being competitive, just getting blown out.
Yeah, we talked about that before this season, that there was a possibility that the Steelers are in some turmoil when it comes to this offense. Lack of leadership. And in this league, you need a quarterback. I don't care who you are. If we have a quarterback and these are still the issues, Donkey, then we're having a clear-cut discussion. From the outside looking in, I feel like there's so much more at play here. You are not wrong about what you're saying, but I do not think there is one singular aha that fixes all these problems.
There's certainly not. There needs to be a clean house and a rebuild. And the reason I say that, Gingy, is we have a defensive-minded coach who has the highest paid defense in the league by about $20 million over the next team. By the way, $20 million, that can sign you a superstar. So we should have at least one more superstar than any other team in the league on defense. But this is the fifth straight playoff game the Steelers have had where they've given up more than 30 points. That has to be an absolute killer if you're a head coach who's a defensive coach, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'd say unless you're, we keep saying, TJ Watt ain't the team, but come on, let's look at what we got. And I'm not saying that's right or that's wrong, but I'm saying that's what we got.
I hear you. Lashers, I'm going to go to you on this. If TJ Watt is the team, then why the hell don't we just get rid of all the other high-paid players on defense and put some damn money into this offense? Because that's where the league's at nowadays. So why are we paying a defense that's only TJ Watt? If they suck without him, we might as well not pay them. We might as well put that money towards an offense, right?
I agree with that, actually.
I agree with that, too.
I don't know why, but I agree with that because it's ridiculous, but...
I mean, this year alone...
Why pay the defense if they can't show up?
This team's won without Larry Ogunjobi. This team's won without Cam Hayward. This team's won without Minkah Fitzpatrick. I mean, my God, why am I paying you if the only guy who matters if he's on the field is TJ Watt? Y'all might as well go home. I'll go pay some offensive players, bring in some superstars. Let's bring in T. Higgins. Let's bring in the best tight end available. Let's bring in the top 2 offensive linemen. Let's bring in a running back and 2 quarterbacks while we're at it. We'll run a 3-quarterback formation we talked about jokingly a week ago. And screw it. We will literally run the chuck it, F it football all day long because you don't know who's going to throw the ball. My goodness gracious, just the disappointment I feel because this team was so unprepared for yet another big game. And that's how it always feels recently with the Steelers. And we haven't even got to special teams yet, which, by the way, Danny Smith, you get to keep your job because the block field goal was the only good thing the Steelers did all day. The block field goal was amazing. I'm not even sure it was really the Steelers' credit because I'm pretty sure that dude kicked it into the back of his own offensive lineman. But hey, whatever. Block field goal, recover at the 30. We get to score a touchdown before half. Give us a little woo-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo happy juice. But Presley Harvin, my God, if a punter gets talked about every week, that tells you there's something wrong. And the fact that the Steelers didn't advance it, and the fact that the Steelers had a guy who finished this year in the top 10 in punting on our roster and instead decided to keep Presley Harvin is exactly what the problem is, Gingy. It feels like the Steelers are more about keeping good guys around than good football players. And I don't feel the cutthroat mentality that kept the Steelers great for so long. Let's be honest, Gingy, if these were the Steelers in like 2008, Troy Polamalu probably would have played an extra 6 years at the end of his career, don't you think?
Seems to look that way. I mean, if you treat everybody like Ben Roethlisberger, that's how it's gonna go. Yeah, haven't seen that cutthroat type of thing in a while.
There isn't. It's getting softer and softer. More and more veterans every week are getting veterans days off. And by the way, I look at other teams' injury reports, and very rarely do other teams have underperforming units get veterans days off. This is not a thing that's all over the NFL. This is a thing that just seems to me to be the lesson learned here. But let's be honest. Let's just talk about this game, what it was. Let's wrap it up here. The Buffalo Bills came out prepared. They scored points, and the Steelers never touched the ball again. Third straight game, at least. I didn't go back farther than that, but at least a third straight playoff game where the Steelers do not touch the football with a chance to tie in the second half. Gingy, just a rough way to end the year, don't you think?
Yeah, but again, I didn't really expect much more than that. When you weren't winning the turnover battle, you didn't have the splash plays outside of the block field goal. You didn't have the personnel in there that you really wanted in there. I didn't see many other opportunities other than that. Like we said last week, that's definitely on tape. I spelled a recipe for victory. How did any of that turn out?
Splash plays.
Any of that? Yeah.
To make a splash play, you have to be aggressive. This team isn't aggressive. The standard is the standard. We live in our fears. And I said it that way on purpose. Laskers, you look at this team, you look at that game. I mean, that's what everybody expected was the Steelers to come out and roll over. What does it say about this team that they came out and rolled over?
That's my answer to that. But I got one thing on Presley Harvin. And, hey, you got to be buddy-buddy with the coach to stay on the team.
Gingy, say it ain't true.
Presley Harvin experiment's over, in my opinion. I don't know what's happening there.
He'll be back
it's
next
costing
year.
us. I'd hope not. I mean, it's got to show like this.
Extension and a raise. He's a good holder.
I don't know about that, boys. I don't know about all that. I mean, you're not going to get me to really pull too much Tomlin hate at this point. I got to evaluate some of these games and think about this over the offseason. Plenty of time to think about it here. I hear what you're saying. There's plenty of valid criticism of them out there, but I don't want to be on one of these teams on the coaching carousel, changing every 3 years, 4 years. If it's not, I want to see what he does with a new set of coordinators. It'll be really, really interesting to talk about.
We said that OC. 3 years ago.
When we see this OC, I think there will be a lot to talk about this offseason.
That's the exact conversation we had, and I bet it's on tape because I think we started this podcast before Randy Feichner was gone. That's the same shit we said about Randy Feichner when we blamed him.
We still went with inside the organization, and we didn't commit to going outside.
Until we prove otherwise, we won't.
Until we prove otherwise, yes.
Gingy, my bigger concern is if we get one of these retreads, because Tomlin said he wants a guy with play calling experience, so you're going to get a retread. That means you're getting a guy that's not coming from one of those innovative systems. That means you're getting a guy who was so good at his last job, they don't want him anymore. That's concerning. I mean, the guy in Seattle, I guess you could say, well, Pete Carroll left. That's a little different of a story. But it's going to end up being a guy like Arthur Smith, who had success with Tennessee, but always got blown out in big games because that style of football doesn't work. Goes to Atlanta and goes 7-9, 7-9, 7-9. He did like the reverse Tomlin. He finished one game away from being 500 like every year. I think it was 7-9, 8-9, 8-9 since we went to 17 game schedules. But when you tell me you're looking for a guy with past play calling experience, you're telling me you're looking for a guy who hasn't been successful, unless that hires from the college ranks. But that doesn't tend to be the Steelers' way, which means you're looking at one of these recast guys who has failed somewhere, Gingy. I'm not going to say anything overly bad. I won't talk too into it. But Gingy, until something changes and we get into this modern offense, which is pass first style of football, I mean, why should I expect anything else, especially when they already ruled out my favorite candidate, because I wanted to see Byron Leftwich and Jameis Winston up here throwing the ball for like 70 touchdowns and 40 interceptions. That would have been fun.
I don't know how fun, per se, that's going to be, Donkey, but...
Would you not enjoy a 32-35 football game every week? Like, there'd be fireworks everywhere. It'd be fun as hell.
Yeah, sure.
She's like, I want to run the ball and I want to win 10-9 or 8-7. 2
That'd
points
be
conversion
awesome.
At the end, baby.
Tell me more about that.
He's a Cowher fan.
Donkey. Tell me more about that plan. Tell me more about smash mouth football and hard-nosed linebackers. Oh, man, that's
we
my
going
type
back
of
to
talk.
old school 1950s football. TJ Watt is going to put on the single strap helmet, and he's going to play fullback as well as outside linebacker, and it's going to be great. As now I get copyright infringed from Frosted Flakes, so kudos to me for that one. Oh, man,
I wish.
I don't know what to say. I have a lot of things to say. I think I put out there pretty good how I feel about things. I'll break down the position units and how disappointing they were this year, how good players were this year in other positions and things. But this is a chance for Laskers to start, and then we'll go to Gingy. Just give their absolute closing thoughts on the season as a whole, not the disappointing playoff end, but this season as a whole. How do you feel about it, Laskers? That sums it up nicely, actually.
I didn't feel good about this season at all. I don't think we should have been in the playoffs. Is how that's how I sum up the season.
Gingy.
Disappointing overall. I hope this was a season that we were going to have questions answered about a lot of things. Full questions answered about Kenny Pickett. Full questions answered about Najee Harris and the offense. Maybe an identity somewhere. And instead, I just feel like we're starting next year kind of where we started this year. And we didn't really find out no more, no less about this football team.
Gingy, you summed it up perfect. That's how I feel. I actually do want to close thought here. I think Gingy nailed it on the head right there. This is a team that this was supposed to be year 2 of a rebuild, but this feels like we're going into the rebuild now. Like, this should be year 3. This should be the year we're on the up and up, and we feel like we're ready to take that next step. But when you look at us, even in the AFC North, the only team we were better than was a team that was without their MVP quarterback the whole year. This is a team that hasn't established an identity on offense or defense. And honestly, our defense has more questions than our offense going into the offseason. Is Cam Hayward going to be back? Is Larry Ogunjobi worth his contract? Are any of those middle linebackers viable? Do we have a starting cornerback on the team? Do we have a starting strong safety on the team? There's just so many questions that a team that's going into year 3, and that's what this is, year 3 of a rebuild, shouldn't be having. And the scarier part for me, the only part Gingy didn't talk about because he doesn't care about that kind of stuff, is the Steelers are already in salary cap hell going into next year. Oy, nothing but concern for me coming out of what really should have been a building season. I agree, Gingy. But let's get into it. There are still games being played. There's still some fun games being out there. Gingy, Cowboys did the Cowboys. That was kind of fun to watch.
Cowboys do what Cowboys do.
Baker Mayfield about to make the curse of Baker a real thing, out there retreading, taking it to the Eagles. The Eagles questioning Nick Sirianni now. And this is the team I wanted to bring up, Gingy. Yeah, you talk about living in your fears and, well, I don't want to just get in the coaching carousel. Philadelphia fired Andy Reid to get Peterson, who won him a Super Bowl, to fire him to get Sirianni, who brought him to a Super Bowl. So trust me, if you do it right, it can work. And the Steelers have never made a bad coaching decision, so in terms of hiring. So I'm not sure I'm overly concerned about that, because sometimes...
I can't believe you're advocating for that nonsense.
Sometimes, Gingy, no, you didn't let me finish. Sometimes you can still love Blockbuster, but realize that Netflix is what you need, okay? You can still love what Blockbuster gave you, but Blockbuster just didn't keep up with the times, and you just need a Netflix, Gingy. It's just the way it is sometimes, okay? I mean, dinosaurs are great, but there's a reason they aren't on the planet anymore. It doesn't mean we don't think they're cool, and it doesn't mean if you gave me a chance to go dig one up, my ass wouldn't be the first one there. But is what it is. But let's talk about playoff games that are gonna be happening. Oh wait, first let's talk about Matthew Stafford getting absolutely roasted by Detroit. Made me so happy. You don't even know. And then hearing his wife cry that he got booed, like, y'all ditched Detroit as soon as you saw the first sign. You brought your kids there expecting what? That they were going to hug and kiss you? No, they're going to boo your ass. Come on, girl. This is sports. You've lived in it for like a decade. Know yourself a little better and stop being a crying little Karen, all right? Go drink your mocha latte coffee down in LA and enjoy sitting on the bench because that's where you belong right now. Playoff games going on. Let's start in the NFC. Let's start. The Niners are hosting a Green Bay team that I don't know if y'all have watched them the last 3 weeks, but Jordan Love's got it going. That running game's playing off the pass game, and that defense is playing pretty stout. My gosh, Gingy, does the 1 seed have something to worry about in the 7-seeded Green Bay Packers?
I mean, they're hot. They're hot, right? How many points did they end up with versus Dallas?
Almost 50.
Yeah,
almost 50.
They're hot. They're hot. I mean, San Fran has been a wagon all season, but I don't know, Donkey. What's their recipe for success over there? They just got to disrupt Brock Purdy, I'd say. But
the San Francisco plays very much like Dallas. If they get a lead, that team's hard to deal with. But if you put them behind early, like Green Bay did to Dallas, boy, you can win that game because you can start getting pressures on the quarterback, make the quarterback make a little bit of mistakes, and then all of a sudden it's just a snowball effect when that pass rush isn't just a pass rush. They still have to respect the run. It can be a scary thing, Laskers.
Well, that 9-8 team is definitely scary. I wouldn't want to come up against the Packers this week.
Also, shout out to Jordan Love because that dude, I've watched him make some flat-footed throws, 30-plus yards. That dude's got an effing cannon, Gingy. That's why I'm taking the Packers. Gingy, who'd you like?
Niners.
Laskers.
Give me the Packers.
Oh, I'm not the only one on the bandwagon. All right, game 2.
Donkey, me and you are the only ones who picked the Packers last week.
Fair. I didn't pick the Packers. I picked the Cowboys because that team was so good at home, and then they do that. I should be like Gingy. When I think something good's going to happen, vote the other way. So we have the game that is Donkey can't lose because, one, Detroit's a lovable loser, and I want Jared Goff to win a Super Bowl because if both quarterbacks win a Super Bowl in that trade, it's awesome. But outcast Jared Goff gets to take on recast Baker Mayfield in the battle of, but you need a franchise quarterback. Bullshit is what these two teams say in the NFC over here. My goodness gracious. What are you guys feeling? Bucks, Lions. Woo-hoo-hoo. Showdown of the outcast, we'll call it. Gingy, who you got in this one?
Give me the Lions.
Laskers.
This one's actually a tough one for me. But give me the Lions.
Give me Tampa Bay because the curse of Baker needs to become a real thing for Cleveland. Plus, I love the Bucks. So let's go, Bucks and Mike Evans. Rip them up, baby. Also, Antoine Winfield Jr., I know no one wants to talk about it. I love TJ Watt because it's best pass rusher. He should win Defensive Player of the Year. But Antoine Winfield Jr. is your Defensive Player of the Year. You don't know why? Just go look at that guy's stat sheet. 100-plus tackles, 7 sacks, 4 interceptions, 3 forced fumbles, like a jillion tackles for loss. The dude stacks stats everywhere and has played amazing in the secondary out there. Now let's turn it over to the AFC. Let's turn it over to a team we know well, the 1-seeded Baltimore Ravens. Did they give Lamar Jackson too much rest? They're still going to be without Marlon Humphrey on the back end, but they're getting back a bunch of players, including Odell Beckham Jr., Kyle Hamilton, Roquan Smith, who didn't play the Steelers game just because they didn't want to. They get to take on a super explosive look what this rookie can do team in Houston. CJ Stroud absolutely lighting it up against the best defense since the '07 Steelers Browns, which, as I believe my boy Juju like to say, Browns is the Browns. Who'd you guys like in this one? This could be a 55-52 type of football game, don't you think, Laskers?
Oh, I definitely think it could be a high-scoring game, and I think that's what the Texans need. Give me the Texans.
Ooh, Gingy.
That's a big pick. I did pick Texans over the Browns last week, but I think going into Baltimore is going to be too tough. If they had to travel like Cleveland did, it might be different. But going into Baltimore, that place is going to be rocking. It's going to be on fire in there. Give me Baltimore.
Give me Baltimore too. I think the overlooked part here is Baltimore's defense is freaking stout. Also, I know we don't talk about it much because it really hasn't seemed to have a big effect. But the loss of Tank Dell at week 15 for Houston, I think this is the week it shows up and hurts them not having that really, really good secondary option to Nico Collins, who if you all remember at the start of the year, it's like, who the hell's Nico Collins? Well, he's their version of George Pickens, essentially. So, having a number 2 for him would be really helpful. I think it gets a little exposed this week. And also, Mark Andrews might be back. Look for that to be a sneaky factor in that game. Now we get to Kansas City. We get to Buffalo. We talked about the Buffalo game, but let's talk about the Kansas City game against Miami. A lot of people want to call Miami frauds, but come on. Miami lost both of their top 2 pass rushers. Oh, wait. No, they didn't. They lost their top 3 pass rushers, their starting cornerback, and a starting safety all within the last 3 weeks of the regular season. I mean, that was just a team that injuries caught up to them on the defense, and those conditions in Kansas City were not prudent for passing offense. But there's a huge part of the Kansas City game I want to talk about. How the hell do the refs cater to the Chiefs any harder? Patrick Mahomes gets a broken helmet. That's an equipment problem. He is supposed to be forced to get out of the game, or the Chiefs have to take a timeout. The refs give a timeout on the field, but they don't charge it to the Chiefs, and they don't make Patrick Mahomes leave the field. They let him keep playing. My goodness gracious, refereeing has been a talk of this whole season, and this game is the game I want to talk about, it being the talk of the postseason, because, Gingy, how the hell are the refs this bad?
I'm not sure. I mean, I know they like Patty Mahomes winning and all. That keeps viewership up all the way throughout the playoffs, but...
Tay brings in a whole new fan base, right?
Let's not even go there, donkey. But, yeah, I don't know what to say about that. Somebody's... What's the deal? What's the deal? Why?
I was about to quote some Tay-Tay songs, but I don't feel like it. But Laskers, this game is going to be played in your backyard. Do the Buffalo Bills have a chance, Laskers?
Donkey, I'm going with the statistics that you gave last week. And the Bills are going to win because the Bills are going to make the Super Bowl. Now, they're probably not going to win the Super Bowl, but they're making the Super Bowl.
Shit, do I have to rethink my pick now? Lasker's calling out stats, and I love stats. Gingy, you get to go while I ponder this, all right?
Give me the Chiefs. I don't think the Bills can do what they did versus us last week and pull that off versus a Kansas City Chiefs team.
Hey, just remember, Gingy, they beat the Chiefs already this year in Arrowhead.
That is true, but I'm going to tell you right now, the breakout of Rice as a good receiver for the Chiefs the second half of the year and the injuries the Bills have taken are the reason I have to go with Kansas City. I have to go with the team that's healthier and has the better defense, and right now that is the Chiefs. With that being said, I forgot to do it at the start of the playoffs, so we're going to do it right here before we get to a shout-out. Lasker's Super Bowl teams. I hope you pick 2 teams you pick to lose this week, because that would be great.
No, I gotta go look.
All right, Gingy, while he looks, Super Bowl teams.
Teams?
Yeah, who's playing in the Super Bowl? You can tell me the winner, too.
I have Ravens Niners with the Niners winning.
Oh, very, very one-seated of you there, Gingy.
Hey, I mean, the NFL at home field advantage with a powerful offense is a crazy thing.
Fair.
I'm going Packers, Bills, Packers winning.
All right. Well, my neighbors absolutely love your pick right there, by the way. I have to go Buccaneers over the Baltimore Ravens because the curse of Baker needs to be a real thing. And I think Baker beating the Ravens for the Super Bowl would be the best way to start the curse of Baker Mayfield. All right, let's get to shout outs. You can either do a shout out from this game or better yet, how about a Steelers season shout out who you want to give it to? Laskers.
So my shout out is going to be Najee for calling out everyone for not playing the way that they need to, and the lack of coaching. I just got to give a shout out to Najee. I mean, good job, young man, for standing up for yourself. And who cares what happens to you?
He certainly pissed off Cam Hayward with his statement. Gingy, how about a shout out from you? Silence speaks volumes. That's fair.
Volume. Sorry, we got 2 shout outs. Can I do 2? Is that legal?
Yeah,
sure.
You want to go to 4? Do whatever the hell you want. It's Steelers season over. Do what you got to do.
All right. I'm impressed. Number 1, shout out. Speaking of number 1, to first round pick Broderick Jones for stepping in. I think performing like a first round pick. See a bright future for that young man. Right? There's mistakes. There's tape. Blah, blah, blah. I like the heart. I like the toughness. And I think that he's going to be a good asset. Shout out to Broderick Jones. Number 2.
Broderick Jones just move back to left tackle, please, Gingy, because I don't want Dan Moore anymore.
No, nobody wants Dan Moore. That's probably why we still have him. And okay. And my number 2 shout out has to be for the heart and passion on offense, Jaylen Warren. I feel like has been a consistent bright spot. You know, we talked about Steelers coming on late. I saw some push on that offensive line. We saw a hint of identity the last 3 regular season games, right? And we talked about Najee coming on then too. Great, but I think one consistent high performer, if I might say, that might be a stretch. I'm high performer on this team. Jaylen Warren, shout out for what? That's a great season. I understand the outcome. Over 5 yards
of carry, I'll allow it.
I understand. Thank you, Donkey, for allowing. Shout out for what I think is a high point on an offense where we're not finding a ton of them.
That is true. Only thing we have to do is give the ball to him more often. Neither here nor there.
Here.
I'm going to take the easiest shout out ever. Season ended and TJ Watt, NFL sack leader for the 3rd time. What is that? One of 3 people in the history of the NFL to ever do that over 3 different seasons. My goodness gracious. If that dude isn't the Pittsburgh Steelers whole team, I don't know who the hell is. So my shout out's got to be TJ Watt. This is where I'll say, Laskers, Gingy, do we have any closing thoughts on this week? The closeout of the Steelers season, divisional round for everybody who still gets to play.
I got nothing.
Gingy?
You know what? I hope everyone has a good divisional round weekend, right? Shout out to everyone still playing football. The road is 8 teams, right? If your team is still in it at this point, that's got to be a successful season. Wish the Steelers were playing, seeing as we possibly could have had TJ back this week. Neither here nor there. Now, I'm looking forward to some good games, though. Some good games. Kansas City, Buffalo on my mind. Looking forward to seeing the outcome of that one.
We're at a point in the season where the top 25% of NFL teams remain. The only division not represented is the NFC East, right? That's where NFC East is the
Eagles
only
and
team
Cowboys
not
gone.
represented in here. And most people's Super Bowl favorites, if it wasn't San Francisco from the NFC, was Dallas or Philly. So that's kind of fun to see. And of course, I am the Viking Donkey. That's Viking_Donkey at Twitch and Twitter. Your daily dose of Donkey with Gingers, where you get this fun content. We went a little long because, well, it's season end and heartbreak, sorrow, misery loves company. We wanted to share as much time as possible together. Hit a like, smash that follow button, send it to all your friends. Let us know how we're doing, and Laskers will let you know where to reach them.
I'm the Laskers everywhere, and again, if you can't find me, that's too bad for you. Gingy to you.
Mutant Gingy, we in the house. We talking football. Steelers Nation settling in, perhaps for a long winter's nap. Lots to be talked about in the off season. Stay tuned, folks. And you know what? Just for old time's sake, just wave them if you got them. Here we go, Steelers.